My boss docked my pay because I wouldn't babysit her kid during work hours. So I sent her an invoice for every errand I'd run for her over the last year. Her husband paid it and called a divorce lawyer. I'm Morgan, 32, female, and I work as an office manager for a small but busy marketing firm in Denver. My boss, Hannah, 38, is the kind of person who calls herself a girl boss, unironically. Loud, controlling, always performing for the room. When I first started, she seemed eccentric but tolerable. Over time, though, she started treating me less like an employee and more like her personal assistant. And then worse, like her unpaid nanny. It started small, grabbing her dry cleaning, ordering gifts for her husband, waiting for a repair guy at her condo because she couldn't take time away from work. She'd frame these things as team spirit, like we were in this together. I didn't love it, but I told myself picking up her soy lattes was better than getting screamed at. Then, about a year ago, she had her first kid, Ava. That's when things went from annoying to outright insane. At first, she just wanted me to help by scheduling pediatrician appointments or arranging grocery deliveries for baby formula. But by the time Ava was 6 months old, Hannah was regularly bringing her into the office and then disappearing into client meetings, leaving me with a diaper bag, a crying infant, and no warning. I'd be in the middle of payroll when she'd swing by my desk with a cheery, "Can you just watch her for a bit? You're so good with kids," then vanish for hours. I didn't complain because, well, jobs aren't easy to come by and Hannah has a reputation for making ex-employees' lives hell. But last month, she pushed me past my limit. It was a Tuesday morning, already slammed with deadlines. Hannah came in frazzled, shoved Ava into my arms before I could even stand up and said, "I need you to watch her until after lunch. The nanny's sick." I tried to remind her I had 3 meetings to prep for. She waved me off. "You'll figure it out. Multitasking builds character." By noon, I'd missed 2 calls. One client was pissed, and my desk smelled like baby spit up. When she finally came back, I told her this couldn't keep happening. That's when her voice went cold. She leaned against my desk and said, "If you're not willing to be flexible for the team, maybe we need to revisit your compensation." Friday's paycheck was $300 short. I stared at the stub in disbelief. When I confronted her, she smirked and said, "You weren't productive Tuesday. I'm not paying you to babysit my kid when you should be working." That night, I sat on my couch, fuming. Then I remembered every favor she'd ever made me do. Errands, grocery runs, house sitting, picking up her car from service. I'd kept receipts, mileage logs, even timestamps and old calendar invites. So I did what any furious, overworked office manager would do. I spent my entire weekend putting together a professional-grade invoice. Every errand had a line item. Mileage charged at the IRS standard rate. Waiting time billed at my regular hourly rate. The total came to just over $4,800. On Monday morning, I walked into her office, set the invoice neatly on her desk and said, "If you're docking my pay for babysitting, I'm billing you for every personal task I've done for you in the last year. Payment due in 30 days. She laughed. Until 2 days later, her husband showed up at the office. He asked me about the invoice, so I told him everything. Every errand, every time his wife left Ava with me for hours while she worked, he went pale. He thanked me, said he'd take care of it, and left. The next day, I found an envelope on my desk. Inside was a check for the full amount, signed by him. 2 weeks later, Hannah came in with swollen eyes, muttered something about personal issues, and locked herself in her office. I overheard her on the phone later, screaming about lawyers and custody. Turns out her husband didn't just pay me, he called a divorce lawyer. After that check cleared, the office atmosphere got weird. Hannah stopped asking me to run personal errands, which was a relief, but it also felt like she was watching me constantly. Every time I went to refill my coffee or even chat with a coworker, I'd catch her standing in her doorway, eyes tracking me like she was daring me to slack off. But here's the thing. My coworkers had noticed what went down. And apparently, her husband's little visit to the office had been the talk of the break room for days. Hannah had spun some story about a misunderstanding with an overzealous accountant, but nobody bought it. Everyone knew she'd been treating me like her unpaid maid for months. By the second week, she started unraveling. I'd hear her snapping at clients on calls, pacing the hallways, slamming her office door. She was wearing the same wrinkled blouse 2 days in a row, makeup smudged, hair frizzed. A couple of times, she came in late with Ava on her hip, visibly stressed and near tears, and just dumped the baby in the conference room while she took a personal call. Except now, no one would touch Ava. Not after what happened to me. The receptionist even flat out said, "Sorry, I've got work to do," and walked away one morning, leaving Hannah glaring like she'd been betrayed by her own army. The breaking point came on a Friday. I'd just finished up a quarterly report when Hannah stormed out of her office, phone in hand, face blotchy and red. She barked at me to print some files immediately. I told her I'd have to do it after I emailed the report to a client whose deadline was in, literally, 10 minutes. She lost it. Slammed her hand on my desk so hard my coffee spilled over my keyboard. "You are not the priority here, I am," she shouted, loud enough that people popped their heads out of offices. "You're lucky I even keep you around after the stunt you pulled." Something in me just broke. All the months of being treated like a servant, the humiliation of having my pay stolen, the nerve of her acting like I had wronged her. I stood up, wiped my desk with a handful of napkins and said, calm, but loud enough for the entire room to hear, "You know what, Hannah? I think your husband was right to call a lawyer." Dead silence. Her mouth dropped open like I'd slapped her. She sputtered something about me being out of line before locking herself in her office for the rest of the day. 30 minutes later, her husband walked in again. He didn't go to her office. He came straight to my desk, handed me a business card for his lawyer, and quietly said, "If she tries to retaliate, call him." Then he walked out. That night, my phone lit up with texts from coworkers. "What the hell did you say to her?" She was crying in her car for an hour before she left. "You're my hero." I thought maybe things would calm down after that. I was wrong, because the next week, Hannah didn't just retaliate, she went nuclear. The nuclear started on Monday morning. I walked in, coffee in hand, and my keycard wouldn't work. The door reader just flashed red. At first, I thought maybe the system was down, but then the receptionist, eyes wide, came to let me in and whispered, "She told security to deactivate your card." Inside, my desk was different. The plant I'd kept for 3 years was gone. My framed photo of my sister's wedding, gone. Even the little sticky note reminders I'd plastered around my monitor were missing. My computer had been locked out. A sticky note slapped on it in Hannah's handwriting. "See me before logging in." When I walked into her office, she was leaning back in her chair, arms crossed, looking smug in that "I think I'm about to win way" that made my blood boil. "I've decided," she said, "that your attitude is creating a toxic environment. Until we can reestablish a professional dynamic, you'll be on probation. That means no overtime, no work from home days, and all assignments must be cleared through me directly." It was petty, childish, and it was clearly meant to make me quit. I just smiled and said, "Noted. Can you sign this for me?" and slid a printed copy of the State Labor Board's policy on wage docking across her desk. Her smirk flickered. From that day on, she made it her mission to micromanage me into the ground. If I so much as went to the bathroom, she'd time me. She started CCing herself on every single email I sent. One day, she actually stood behind me while I typed, breathing down my neck, and then criticized my typing speed, like she was trying to provoke me into snapping. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. I documented everything. Dates, times, what she said, who overheard. I kept a folder on my home computer labeled Hannageddon. Then came the stunt with Ava. On Thursday, she brought the baby in again. Marched right up to my desk, plopped the diaper bag down and said, "I need you to hold her for a minute while I take this call." Before I could even respond, she shoved Ava into my arms and left. I stood there frozen, heart pounding, not because of the baby, but because I could feel every eye in the office on me. I walked right into her office, baby in tow, and set Ava gently in her lap while she was mid-sentence on the phone. Her jaw dropped. I leaned in and whispered, "Touch me or my paycheck again, and I'll send your husband the security footage." Her eyes went wide. She hung up without a word. That was the moment the temperature in the office shifted. She stopped talking to me entirely. emails only, and always vague, as if she knew every word might end up in someone else's inbox. But I knew she wasn't done. And I was right, because the next move she made was public. It happened the following Tuesday, right when I'd started thinking maybe she was backing off. I was halfway through a client presentation in the conference room, our biggest account, the one that basically kept the lights on, when the door burst open. Hannah strode in, face red, eyes wild, holding a manila folder like it was Exhibit A in a murder trial. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, voice dripping with fake politeness, "but I think our clients should know the kind of professionalism they're dealing with here." She started pulling out papers, printouts of my timesheets, emails with typos, even a screenshot of my personal Instagram where I'd posted a photo from a weekend hike with the caption, "Escaping work hell for a day." She waved them around like they were damning evidence, smirking at me the whole time. The clients looked baffled. One of them, a guy named Victor I'd worked with for years, raised his hand like he was stopping a traffic accident. Hannah? We don't care if Morgan goes hiking. We care that she gets our work done, which she does. Better than anyone else here, frankly." Her face twitched. She stammered something about setting the record straight, and then stormed out. I was mortified, but when the door closed, the room went silent for a beat. And then Victor leaned toward me and said, "You should sue her." The others nodded. One woman actually muttered, "What the hell was that?" By the time I got back to my desk, my phone was blowing up. Turns out the whole scene had been caught on the conference room camera. Yep, the one HR has access to. And guess who sent me the footage within an hour? Our IT guy, who simply wrote, "You might want this." That night, I sent the video to her husband. No commentary, no extra details, just the file. The next morning, Hannah didn't show up. Instead, her husband came in. He went straight to the owner's office. They were in there for an hour. When he left, he walked past my desk, gave me the smallest nod, and said quietly, "You've been more patient than she deserved." By lunch, rumors were flying. About lawyers, about financial accounts being frozen, about him moving out. And then, I made my first update post on Reddit. Update 1. Y'all, remember when I said I was playing the long game? Well, the game just handed me a cheat code. First off, holy hell, the response to my last post was insane. I read every comment, even the ones telling me to go scorched earth and drop the nuke now. And I swear, some of you are creative. Whoever suggested I accidentally forward her a folder of her own HR violations. Chef's kiss. A few of you asked if Hannah knows about the first Reddit post. No. At least, I don't think so, though if she does, the woman deserves an Oscar for pretending otherwise. She's still avoiding me, except when she tries to micromanage from a distance. Which, to be honest, is a blessing. Now for the big development. Last Friday, our IT guy, the same one who sent me the conference room video, dropped by my desk. He said, "You didn't get this from me," and handed me a flash drive. I opened it at home that night and almost fell off my couch. It's every internal email Hannah has sent in the last year. That mentioned me. We're talking dozens of messages to the owner, HR, even clients, complaining about me. But here's the kicker. Half the incidents she wrote about either never happened or were wildly twisted. Example. She wrote that I left the office unattended for 2 hours one morning. The reality? I was in a client meeting she sent me to. She claimed I refused to take on urgent tasks that were critical to the company's survival. The urgent task? Picking up her dry cleaning before a gala. And then, there's an email to her husband, using her work account, that literally says, "She owes me for all the times I've covered for her incompetence. I don't care if I have to withhold pay or make her life miserable. She's not going to win." You read that right? She flat out admitted to docking my pay out of spite. I don't know if it was divine timing or just dumb luck, but I had lunch with her husband yesterday. Yes, he asked me. We went to a little sandwich place a few blocks from the office, and the man looked done. Like emotionally running on fumes. I showed him the email. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and said, "That's all I needed." This morning he sent me a text. "Meeting with my lawyer at 2. I'm forwarding him everything. You've been incredible through all of this." So yeah, I think Hannah's about to have a very, very bad week. And me? I'm just sitting here, sipping my coffee, wondering if it's too early to start drafting the second invoice. Because what's coming next is going to make the first one look like a grocery receipt. The Monday after that lunch with her husband, the tension in the office was so thick it felt like walking through syrup. Hannah showed up late, way late, wearing sunglasses indoors and not speaking to anyone. She didn't even acknowledge me when she passed my desk, which would have been a gift if not for the fact that I could feel something brewing. At 11 a.m., she called an emergency meeting in the conference room. Everyone shuffled in, confused, and Hannah launched into this bizarre speech about loyalty and professionalism. It was painfully obvious she was talking about me without saying my name. She rambled about snakes in the grass and people who forget who gave them opportunities. At one point, she actually pointed toward my side of the table and said, "Some people mistake kindness for weakness." It was unhinged. People were exchanging wide-eyed glances like, "Is she for real right now?" When she wrapped up, I just asked, calmly, "Are we done here? I've got actual work to do." That set her jaw tight, but she didn't bite back. She just dismissed everyone. By the afternoon, though, I got my first taste of her retaliation. My company email was suddenly under maintenance, meaning I couldn't send or receive anything. When I went to IT, they sheepishly told me Hannah had requested a temporary suspension due to security concerns. Here's where she miscalculated. I'd already been BCCing myself on every relevant email for weeks: client contracts, project files, invoices. And, thanks to that flash drive from IT, I had her entire digital smear campaign neatly backed up on a private drive at home. That night, I went full revenge mode. I drafted my second invoice, this time itemizing every single personal errand I'd done for her since the last bill, including the times she'd asked me to entertain Ava in the middle of my workday. I used the exact same format as before, professional and precise, down to mileage and wait times. It came to 23/17/45. The next morning, I didn't put it on her desk. I couriered it to her husband's office. Signed for, time-stamped, undeniable. By lunch, he'd called me, calm, almost cheerful. "Don't worry," he said. "This one's on me again. And Morgan? She's not going to like how I'm paying it." When I asked what he meant, he laughed and said, "Let's just say the check's going to have a lawyer's letter stapled to it." Sure enough, 2 days later, Hannah stormed into work looking like she'd swallowed glass. She slammed her office door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. The whispers around the office started immediately. Something about a separation agreement. Something about her being cut off from accounts. I didn't say a word, just kept my head down and worked. Because the real play was already in motion. Her husband wasn't just paying the invoice, he was setting her up for the kind of public humiliation she'd never recover from. And I was about to have front row seats. 2 days later, the trap sprang. It started with a company-wide calendar invite from the owner for a special announcement Friday at 4 p.m. Everyone groaned. It was obvious this was going to cut into our weekend. But curiosity won out. By the time the meeting rolled around, the whole office was crammed into the conference room. Hannah was in her usual power seat, trying to look unfazed but tapping her pen like she was chewing through the inside of her cheek. The owner cleared his throat and said, "Some of you may be aware of recent tensions in the workplace." He glanced directly at me before continuing. "After reviewing certain materials brought to our attention, we've decided on some structural changes to ensure a healthier work environment." Then he dropped it. Hannah was being transitioned into an advisory role. No direct reports, no hiring or firing authority, no client-facing work. She'd still get a paycheck for now, but her access to email, company files, and project management tools would be cut off immediately. The room was dead silent for a second. Then someone actually coughed to hide a laugh. Hannah's face went scarlet. "This is absurd. You can't just—" she started, but the owner cut her off. "The decision is final, Hannah. You'll work from home moving forward. It will help you collect your personal belongings today." Her eyes snapped to me. If looks could kill, I'd be a chalk outline. And then, in one of the most surreal moments of my life, her husband walked in. Not to see her, he ignored her completely, but to hand me an envelope. Inside was a check for $2,317.45, stapled to a legal letter outlining the invoices, her admissions in those emails, and a note saying, "Consider this full and final settlement of Morgan's personal labor claims against Hannah." Signed, law firm name. Hannah snatched at the envelope like she could rip it up, but I slipped it back into my bag before she touched it. "This is harassment," she barked, voice cracking. But her husband didn't even look at her. He just said, "I'll see you at the house. My lawyer will be there," and walked out. That was the day she officially stopped speaking to me. Not a single word, not even a glare, just this brittle fake absence like I wasn't even in the building. Update 2. All right, Reddit, grab your popcorn because I think this is the part where the curtain comes crashing down. First, thank you to everyone who's been following along and sending me DMs that range from "adopt me so I can watch this in person" to "here's a detailed 3-step plan for psychological warfare." You guys are unhinged, and I love it. So, remember in the last update how I said I had one last move? Well, the stars aligned this week. Tuesday morning, HR called me in for a clarification meeting about my involvement in certain recent events. I walk in, and who's sitting there? Hannah. Pale, tight-lipped, and vibrating with fake composure. There's also an HR rep I've barely spoken to in my entire tenure here. They start with, "We've received reports that you've been speaking negatively about leadership to clients." I almost laughed. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened the email she sent to a client accusing me of blackmail, the one she accidentally CC'd to her husband, and slid it across the table. The HR rep went still. "Where did you get this?" I said, "Directly from the client." Who, by the way, said they'd be happy to testify this was unsolicited. Hannah's jaw actually clicked shut. I don't know if she realized in that moment she'd just handed me the final nail for her coffin, but the HR rep sure did. She ended the meeting in under 2 minutes with, "We'll be in touch." Here's where it gets good. Wednesday afternoon, the owner called me into his office. Not HR, not a meeting invite. Just him. He closed the door and said, "Morgan, I think it's best if you work directly under me for the foreseeable future. Hannah will no longer be involved in your projects. In fact, Hannah will no longer be employed here as of Friday." I must have kept the most Oscar-worthy poker face, because inside, I was screaming. Friday came, and Hannah showed up in dark sunglasses, no makeup, hair pulled back like she'd been through a hurricane. 2 people from HR escorted her into her office, and 30 minutes later she was walking out with a single cardboard box. She didn't look at anyone, didn't say goodbye. Just gone. The kicker? That afternoon I got a text from her husband. "She's officially served. Thanks for all your help, whether you meant to or not. Drinks on me when this is over." So yeah, Reddit. Boss docked my pay because I wouldn't babysit her kid. I invoiced her, got paid twice, helped nudge her marriage off a cliff, and now she's unemployed. I don't know if karma is real, but if it is, she's got excellent aim. The Monday after Hannah's cardboard box walk of shame, the office felt lighter. People were actually smiling in the kitchen, music was playing low from someone's desk, and nobody was stomping around timing bathroom breaks. But I wasn't naive enough to think she was really gone from my life. Not yet. By Wednesday, I found out I was right. It started with a string of weird calls to the office. No one on the line, just breathing, then a hang-up. The receptionist swore it was the same number each time, but when we looked it up, it was blocked. Then one afternoon, I came back from lunch to find my car window rolled halfway down, even though I hadn't left it that way. Nothing was stolen, but my glove compartment had been rifled through. That night, as I was locking up at work, I spotted a familiar SUV parked across the street. Hannah's black Lexus. She was sitting in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, hands gripping the wheel. She didn't even try to hide when I saw her. Just stared, then drove off slow. I told her husband, mostly as a "your problem now" kind of heads up. His reply, "Don't engage. She's unraveling faster than my lawyer predicted. Keep documenting." So I did. Every call, every drive-by, every time I thought I saw her at the grocery store, and she suddenly disappeared down another aisle. Then came the bombshell. Friday, I got an email from a former co-worker who'd left months before Hannah's meltdown. Attached were screenshots from a private Facebook group where Hannah had been venting about her backstabbing staff. She hadn't named me directly. She called me the snake, but she included enough details that anyone in our industry could connect the dots. And buried in the comments was a post from one of her wine night friends. "Girl, you should post the receipts." To which Hannah replied, "Oh, I will. Just waiting for the perfect moment." The timing couldn't have been better because that same week, her husband invited me to lunch again. This time, he wasn't stressed. He was grinning. Divorce court date was set. He had the emails, the client smear attempt, the snake post, everything. And then he said the magic words. If she wants to post receipts, we'll beat her to it, publicly, with actual receipts. That's when I realized my role in this wasn't quite finished. I'd already gotten my money and my peace at work, but now, I had a chance to make sure Hannah's public persona took the same fall her career and marriage had. And I wasn't about to waste it. We planned it for the Friday before her first divorce hearing. Her husband, soon-to-be ex, asked me to meet him at a small cafe downtown. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were printed copies of every incriminating thing Hannah had ever put in writing. The email admitting she docked my pay out of spite. Screenshots from that private Facebook group calling me the snake. The client smear email she'd accidentally CC'd to her husband. Even a couple of text threads where she bragged to friends about making me babysit for free. He'd organized it all into a neat chronological packet. And then, on top, he'd clipped my invoices, the original $4,800 and the second $2,317.45, with paid in full stamps across both. "Public record," he said, smirking. "She's been posturing on social media like she's the one who's been wronged. Let's correct that." We didn't leak it to tabloids or gossip sites. Too messy. Instead, he sent the whole packet directly to her industry's professional association and to 3 big clients she used to work with. The subject line was simple: "For your awareness." By Monday, the fallout had started. One of those clients posted on LinkedIn about the importance of ethics in leadership, with a pointed comment about manipulating staff for personal gain. No names, but everyone knew. 2 days later, her professional association announced they were reviewing her membership. And Hannah? She finally tried to fight back. Wednesday night, my phone lit up with a blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Morgan," she said, voice shaking, "you have no idea what you've done." "Oh, I think I do," I said. "You've ruined my life." I actually laughed. "You did that all by yourself. I just sent the receipts." There was a long pause, then a choked, "You're going to regret this." And she hung up. Here's the thing. I don't regret it. Not one bit. She stole from me. Humiliated me in front of clients. Tried to ruin my career. If she'd just owned up and stopped, I might have let it go. But she kept doubling down, and in the end, she buried herself. Last I heard, she moved out of her Lexus-driving wine night circle and into her sister's spare bedroom. Her ex got primary custody of Ava. And me? I still have both checks framed in my home office. Right under them, in bold black letters, I had a plaque made. Invoice everything. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't screaming back. It's billing them for every last second of their bullshit and getting paid in full.